How sustainable is Uganda's public debt in the next financial year? Is our discussion here on The Point this evening. And well, of course, for those of you who want to get us via mainstream, the channel is 320 on GOTV, then DSTV is channel 372. And for those on the online platforms, you can get us onto our YouTube channel, Smart24 TV Live. Also remember to follow us up on Instagram at Smart24TV and Smart24TV Now, that is on Twitter. Remember, if you want to stream Smart24 television wherever and whenever you feel like getting business information, you can easily download the Smart Digital app that is on the Google Play Store, and make sure you get all details regarding business by watching Smart24 television. And of course, you can as well get in touch with our other sister stations in relation to broadcast. That is NBS Cordeo, for those who want to understand the perspectives of Uganda's narrative, especially in Eastern Uganda. And also 89 Smart FM, still on the Smart Digital app. That is where you can easily download and easily get in sync with the ever-changing world of the digital age. Well, our conversations here continue though in relation to Uganda's public debt and how sustainable it can get, or how we can create a sustainable environment for Uganda's public debt, which seemingly is growing and a huge concern. My two guests, I do have Alo Stephen from CSBAC, and also Teopista Kiza, who is the head of programs at the African Development Link, as we continue to digest these matters. Teopista, when you look at debt sustainability, there are some key fundamentals that the Minister of Finance, Matia Kasaija, highlighted in the national budget while presenting it among us, what the ministry is going to be focusing on in order to have this debt sustained. One of which is reducing of expenditure in areas of lower priority in order to support fiscal consolidation. Then also there is something to do with public-private partnerships. This was highlighted as one of those. When you look at countries like Tanzania, for example, the PPPs are actually being considered greatly. If we had to bring it into Uganda's perspective, of what importance, of what percentage can this help us sustain our debt?
Yeah, okay. If you're looking at a strategy of PPPs, I think it's a very good strategy. It's a good strategy because we have people in private sector that have finances, that have monies, where they feel they can invest that money, right? So definitely they would need to work with government to ensure that we are able to provide services and work out the biggest infrastructure projects that we talk about as a country. But if that is to happen, then we need to build trust. Trust is very key, because the private sector people look at profits. How do I get a profit from whatever it is that I'm going to do? But if there is a lot of loopholes in our system as a government, if there is still a lot of corruption, then they may feel that their money is not secure enough if they are to partner with government. So if government is to tap into the potential that comes with partnering with the private sector, they really need to address corruption as a challenge. They need to address issues of I think contract management, because that is one of the challenges that we face as a country. And then also the other one is government is trying its level best to reduce on the bureaucracy in terms of the release of funds. Private sector work with timelines and all that. So if government still has a lot of bureaucracies, then that might not work well with the private sector. So government, I think they are working towards ensuring that their processes are digitalized, so that they don't have to spend a lot of time into processes of contracting and also releasing the funds. So if that is worked out, I think PPPs can be a game changer for our country.
Okay. Stephen, your take on the PPPs?
Well, I think it's a good concept, though not yet picked so much by our government. But PPP is good because private sector, like she said, it's driven by by profit. They, as long as they're making profits, they will go there. So the government problem, the government projects, that's why sometimes it fails. It's because it has a problem of something in economics which is called free riding problems. I'll give an example of collecting rubbish. If you like rubbish in markets, if you leave it for the government to collect, the government is trying to do a lot, like KCCA, they're doing a lot to collect it. But if it's there and no one is obliged to come and pick it. But if it's a private sector, because they know that if I get that rubbish, I'm going to get money out of it, they will do it. But if you leave it for government and the public, they will not do it. And that's the problem with public goods. But so this brings me to my point, is that if you want PPP to work, then let the private sector feels like they will benefit from it.
Okay.
That should be the key point. If they are going to collaborate with government in building an hospital, then it has to be structured in a way that they will get a profit out of it. Either they operate the hospital until they get their money and give it to government, or they operate the hospital, give some percentage of their profit to government while they retain a profit. So that should be the kind of framework that should be catered for in the PPPs.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, there is also something to do with reducing of domestic borrowing. I wanted us to look at this so critically. When government says they're going to reduce, or we as a country are going to reduce on domestic borrowing, in order to at least see that we don't, go overboard in regards to the over borrowings that we've been having as a country. One of the key things they did as well was having budget cuts. That is limiting some expenses that were too high and yet not of much priority, which is okay. Now, when you look at reducing domestic borrowing, it's a good move. We can all agree on that. Yeah. But then where is the money going to come from again? Because you do realize we do not have enough as such, because even with the target that we have from the Uganda Revenue Authority, it is yet to be met. So when you look at, after reducing the domestic borrowing, which sources of money, where are we going to generate this money to service our budget?
Yeah, if I first go for that, is that the spirit of government reducing borrowing borrowing is that at a certain point government doesn't want to compete with the other borrowers within the country. We want to keep our interest rates in check as a country. But then also, if government doesn't borrow domestically, there are other opportunities for us to get resources as a country. And one of the opportunities comes with the sectors like the tourism industry. If you look at the tourism industry, it has potential to generate monies. But previously, I think we've not been intentional in investing into the sector. So this time around, I'm glad, one of the things I appreciate about this budget is that it's looking at an integrated kind of like approach to especially infrastructure development. If they're looking at investing in the standard gauge railway, if they're investing right in ensuring that we have the roads that take us to these tourism sites worked on, then they are sure that that will spur the number of tourists that come into the country, but also promote domestic tourism, so that the tourist sector has potential of generating income for this country. So I think there is potential in there. We also have potential, we've talked about the agriculture sector, there is potential in there. If we really invest right, then we can generate some monies from the agriculture sector to be able to fund our budget as a country.
Okay, and as we continue to look at the agriculture sector, I love how you've actually mentioned it. I think, Steve, when you look at reducing our borrowing and looking at the other avenues of getting the money, where is our focus going to be?
One, we talked of increasing our tax base.
Yes.
That is good. But now, we have this budget. We already have it. So,
You can continue.
Yeah, can we focus on this budget and see how to save the money we have, to utilize the money which is already budgeted for?
Okay.
One way how we can reduce and how we can or reduce domestic borrowing is, I'd emphasize what we call enforcing fiscal discipline. Ministry of Finance has to enforce fiscal discipline. One, it's under fiscal discipline we have supplementary. Let us stop asking for supplementary, because that is what increases our debt. That is what leads to domestic borrowing. We don't have the money. Ask for supplementary. The central bank has to issue financial instruments to get this money. But also, I'm looking at timely executions of projects or the budgets. It is very key. It looks small, but if we are supposed to start constructing this road next in this financial year, or in June or in July, can it start in July?
Okay.
Because every time you don't do that, for especially the monies we borrow, it has interest. Yes. You don't do that, you don't utilize the money, they keep charging you interest on this money. I'm looking at, can we reduce wasteful expenditure? She talked about it. Elaborate. Expenditures that can be reduced. Can we reduce it? Also, now, away from the fiscal discipline, can we have a robust monetary system, monetary policy in place by the central bank? Can the central bank stabilize the prices so that you don't wake up tomorrow and find sugar is 10,000, yet you've been buying it at 3,000 and you're earning the same amount of money? And that also goes to the contractors, by the way. If inflation is high and then the contractors had budgeted for cement, we are going to be buying it at 30,000, and that is the contract they have given to government. But a year down the road, the project has started, they are buying cement 60,000.
Okay.
You see the implication in the budget itself, in the project execution. So those are some of the conversations that we should be having, fixing leakages, trying to deter corruption, make it very risky to engage in corruption. Also, accounting officers, if government doesn't have money, don't commit government. Don't commit government. What do I mean by don't commit government? Don't sign contracts with the private sector or contractors when there is no money, because the moment you sign the contract, then it's government's obliged to pay the money, and yet the money is not there. But also, key is citizens should participate in overseeing the budget, how the budget is being executed. So those are some of the points that I think it's critical for this budget to actually run smoothly and we reduce on domestic borrowing.
Well, of course, as we look deeper into understanding how Uganda is going to reduce on this domestic borrowing and creating room for at least a stable economic drive as a country, there is also something to do with rolling out. There was some of the key provisions within this same issue. The Minister of Finance mentioned something about rolling out the use of mobile money platforms for investing in government treasury bonds. This has been a big concern because pretty much we are also here, we push for the investment of government bonds, ideally. And most of the Ugandans have less information in relation to investing in these government bonds, because Ugandans want to invest in something that is going to bring for them quick money. And we're in an economy that is actually looking at how do I survive today and tomorrow, but mainly today. So government bonds, does it look like a viable approach? I'll start with Stephen.
It's a good approach. Though the current process of buying a government bond or even treasury bill is so hard. You need to open an account with the bank. You need to have a bank who's a broker, then works on your behalf. It's for the educated people and those who can
manage the financial market space.
But then, if we go and but also, the money needs to be aggregated in a way that even me with 100,000 or 1 million, I'm able to buy. Because if the government wants to borrow, let's say 5 billion, and anyone, because I believe there are even people in this economy that have 5 billion, you find that 2 or 3 people have bought the bond because they have the money. So there has to be that provision. But it's a good way for government to raise money cheaply from the population, though it becomes expensive because government has to pay it with an interest to the person who have invested.
Yes.
And also we are trying to reduce, and if you look at our budget, there's a lot of what they call the domestic debt rollover, where government is not able to pay me in time because I've bought government bonds, and the government is not able to pay me in time. So the government goes and borrow to pay me. In other words, government borrows from you to pay me, but that doesn't mean government doesn't have debt, because you will be demanding government. So it keeps going like that, and that is something we want to do. We have been encouraging government to try and reduce, to try and avoid.
Yes.
So that if the bonds are maturing, there has to be money to pay them, so that you don't have to borrow to pay for what you've borrowed, which is here.
Mr. when you look at what the minister intends is to ensure that the common Ugandans also get into this space, but most of them fear getting into that space, by the way. How are we going to encourage them to get into this? Because there's also a move to operationalize the Islamic banking system now. The bills that the committee in Parliament is sitting, though there are others who are saying no room for Islamic banking. But when you look at the treasury bills here, for example, and of course the government bonds, are there chances that our common Ugandans will highly participate?
Yeah, there is a possibility that if we are intentional, even a common person can benefit, and I think that is the spirit by the Ministry of Finance, to ensure that even a person can really pay using mobile money. But now the biggest problem with this country is that we see what we want, but we don't invest in the how. We don't invest in the how. If you look at a common Ugandan, like Stephen has said, this is a person who does not have information on the process. They don't even understand what bonds are. Like you said, the only thing they know is how can I survive today. So if you tell them to invest in something that will give them proceeds later on, they are hesitant. But if we invested in creating awareness and sensitizing our people at the grassroots, they can buy into these things. It's only that they don't have the right information. The information is only accessed by the elites and the people who can easily access that information. And if you look into this budget, the least funded program is community mobilization and mindset change. When we were in one of the meetings organized by CS BAC, when we were doing some kind of like analysis of how government invests, we realized that government tends to put the budget on the effects, and not the root causes. If you look at the root causes of the challenges that we have, the limited revenue and every other thing, it goes down to we have not sensitized our people. We are here, but our people are so disconnected from the reality. If we are talking about increasing our revenue, how are we going to get money from the other last person, a farmer? So I think I think it was a wrong move for government to underestimate community mobilization and mindset change. Because if you look at, if you even go back and look at the government programs that we are talking about, that we think that will put money into the hands of a common Ugandan, is that the previous ones have failed. Why have they failed? People are not sensitized, People's mindset are, how can I have something to eat today? They even eat the capital that they are given, But the problem with most of the Ugandans, like I have said, is not even the money. these guys can get the money if they have the right information, if they know what to do. They can get the money. So I think government needs to really rethink on how we are going to sensitize our people. How can we speak in the languages they must understand? Even me seated here, I know I can speak English, but if you told me to speak in my local language,
so that people can understand the economic terms.
The economic terms. But we are here talking about a bond, we are talking about these jargons. They don't understand. So how can they be a part of it?
You know, that is one of the reasons as to why most people in Chikubo don't want to even save in banks, because they believe there are some terminologies in these particular forms that clearly they are confusing to them. So they feel it's better I keep my money back home, or either throw it into a pool and invest somewhere where I can see growth instantly, rather than saving it in the bank. And it's also limiting our flow in the capital market space, by the way.
Can I say something small?
Yeah, sure.
This is something that really pains me because I work with young people.
Yes.
We need to think about the future of this country. If you move outside Kampala and go up country, we really have a challenge of children giving birth to children. If a child gives birth to a child, then that will keep us in a cycle of poverty. Because this is a child, they become pregnant. The one who made them pregnant is a child, is a boy child. They are all children, they are giving birth. That means their career is now cut off. Now they go and start struggling. As they're struggling, they even don't know the basics of parenting. Even the child is likely to fall into the same mistakes the parents did. So that cycle will continue. So we need to think about, if we are to think about economic growth of this country, we need to get back and invest in our children, or otherwise our future as a country will be compromised.
Okay.
Yeah.
And of course, when we return after the break, we're going to be summing up with our conversation. But of course, looking at creating room to see how best we can stop the this kind of borrowing, or what you could call reckless borrowing, in the next years. Because now, the first thing we've come to realize is that in this coming financial year, the government has prioritized budget cuts. So we want to see by the end of the year, will this be the same cause? Because by the look of things, by next financial year, the budget will increase, obviously. It won't be the same today, and it may increase tremendously if we don't prepare ourselves well. So when we return after the break, we want to look at how best we can at least keep up to this level of sustainability. That is, if at all goes well and it works as well, because one of the key things that bring about borrowing is the issue to do with supplementary budgets. That is when different ministries start pushing in for extra funding because they feel the funds that they were given weren't enough. Just at the start of the year, we saw the Ministry of Health seeking for a supplementary, that is for the Lubowa Hospital. That is the specialized hospital, and surprisingly, it is still under it's not even construction, it is at the foundation level. So when you look at some of these kind of situations, you get to realize we are still moving into the same kind of situation, or we are still following the same script. So our conversations will be returning and focusing on how we can maintain this for the longevity of time, and also how we can increase our resource envelope as a country. Stick around, this is The Point. We return with more.